You are now entering the Cue the Muses podcast. Please reserve submission of any joy meter statistics until after the program.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 4 of Cue the Muses podcast.
It
series.
worked. It has worked this time. This was time to.
We did kind of mess up on the first room that we created, and now we're in room 2. We pulled off the intro. What did you guys think? You've seen it before. You've now seen it again. Well, maybe you haven't seen it before. There's a better chance that you haven't seen it before. We're new.
From the numbers, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. So how you been, man? We haven't gotten to talk to each other since the last podcast.
Yeah, busy. Both of us been busy. I'm tired. I'm wore out. I broke down on the way to work the other day on the interstate off ramp. The clutch in my Wrangler went out, and so I got my way to work. Worked through the day. I thought I knew what it was. I thought it was the slave cylinder. Went and bought a slave cylinder after work. Changed it out on the side of the road, and it didn't do it. It wasn't it. So when I got underneath it, I could see in the viewport between the bell housing and the transfer case or the flywheel, I could see the ball bearings from my from my throw out bearing hanging down in there. So I knew that was it.
Hey, man.
So
how are you doing now with it?
It's okay. I got towed back to the job from a buddy of mine at work, and I'm in the loaner now.
Okay.
Till I get it fixed this weekend.
Fun stuff.
How about you?
I'm just it's been a busy week. It's like a busy filming week. So I was at Trans Am yesterday. I've been doing a documentary on this one of the last 2 Trans Ams being built. Which I thought that they had stopped making Trans Ams as a whole for now while they're doing this new Chevelle series. But they actually are doing 2 more, and one's a special HO edition. That's what I'm doing the documentary on. They've never done one like this.
Is HO high output?
Well, yeah, there's doing a bunch of bells and whistles to it. It's going to be bad to the bone. And then the other one is I want to be making a video for it. I can't say who it's for yet, even though, I mean, when it's out, it'll be out, but it's for a very, very, very famous rock legend.
Wow.
For real. Like, I'll tell you off camera who it is. And
awesome.
we're hoping that the thing is that it's a surprise for him. He doesn't know it's a birthday present, which is kind of insane money. And he has an old one from like the original that's the same color. So this will be like the modern version. So he'll have the pair. So he doesn't know that it's being built for him, which is why we don't know if we could make a video or not. But if we could get an interview with him, I will most definitely tell him about Cue the Muses. No doubt.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Badass, man.
Yeah.
So, couple months out, then some. It's going to be up there in the Panhandle,
yeah,
right?
I don't actually know what the official timeline is on that one. It's weird because they're like peppering in these last 2 Trans Am builds on the current chassis that they build them on, and they really have restructured the entire place to be working on the 70 SS, which is their Chevelle tribute. And I'm booked to film. I've already been making one video for one customer for their custom build, and then there's another customer who I'll probably be doing a video for their build as well, which is pretty cool. It's like a whole switch around here where we're actually having customers hire me rather than Trans Am hire me, and it's a custom video based on their specific build, because there's so many options on how to customize these things in-house that it's like every one of them's unique, and everyone's got a unique story as to why they need this car, what their history is with it, what they plan to do with it. And it's like going to be pretty wild where we end up going with on a couple of these things. It's real exciting and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's classic spiderweb networking right there.
Yeah. Totally.
Tangible results, word of mouth, direct exposure to that.
Well, and it's like all the guys to be honest, I mean, so many of these people found out about Trans Am Worldwide from the videos. So they watch the videos and they love them. Like most of these guys, when I talk to them, they've watched all the videos that I've made multiple times. So the idea that I'm available to make a video for their specific car, it's like, yeah, I'm in.
I've got a car. My car could be badass on the video like that.
And then we hope that they'll be down to also allow the video to eventually get hosted on Trans Am's YouTube channel as well, because it's more exposure for their car popularity. And it's also really cool too if they were ever going to sell it, to sell like it shows what went into making that vehicle, and so the pedigree of it is very high. I think it'll add a lot of value to the car itself.
Oh, for sure. And I know that emotional attachment that people can get to vehicles. I have it too with my truck and you know, all my vehicles, but my truck particular, like when I had the chance when me and you did the Fighting Giants video from that badass t-shirt you're wearing, I had a chance to put my truck in it. I had a chance to put my truck in the video too. You know, it's like, oh, we got to put the old truck, just an old, but mine's not a ripping badass brand new Firebird conversion. It's old busted up 87 pickup, but it's the same principle. I know that
it's the same. I mean, you're talking to a guy that's still rocking a 2007 Dodge Grand Caravan, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what's up. The goat. The goat.
I'm gonna just ride that thing till it officially breaks. It's ultimately been really reliable, but I know I'm heading into the danger zone.
That's the thing. It never will. You'll drive it forever. You'll be one of them guys with 380,000 miles on the minivan.
And I call it the Decepticon already because you'd never know that inside that thing lurks all this expensive film equipment. Just around. You'd never know.
Don't telegraph the hot van. Well, it's funny. It's funny you said Decepticon. I learned yesterday that the original Japanese toys of the Transformers and the Decepticons, like the main one, Megatron, he was a good guy.
What? What are you talking about?
In that toy, the original Megatron. Okay, there's a whole thing. There's a whole show. The original Megatron came out as a toy of a little robot man who turned into a gun, and the gun he turned into was like, it was very real. It looked very real, like a.
I remember something about this. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, it was like a direct copy of a Walther or something or other, but the actual character, the Japanese character that Megatron gun changing robot was a good guy. And then when they brought him over, like the whole history of that was that franchise ended up, the American franchise was Transformers, and what they were doing, they were buying royalty rights and image rights of all these Japanese toys and directly importing them into a show, comic and toy line in America, rebranded. So it was a weird way, and the way they acquisition each one, it was just random ones, and they change them to whatever they want. So some of the bad guys were good guys were bad guys, and all that.
It's like the real world.
Yeah.
Things are more complex than just the black and white good and bad guys, right? Like there's depth. And you'll find that, ladies and gentlemen, in Cue the Muses, the show that you can watch at any point for free. That was a plug.
Right. There's a plug. There's a thing, right?
Plug number one. There might be more throughout this episode.
There could be.
You know, I not to get too off topic here, or maybe steer it more back onto a topic that's relevant to music specifically and stuff. Today I was filming for Elite, and I was filming an installation. This is a concrete coating company, and a couple of these guys, the installers, one of them in particular, he's a musician himself, and we were just talking about how hard it is to make. I was telling about the show, and he thought, like, that's really cool idea. He was very interested in it. I pulled up a snippet of My Soul's an Element with Nadir. I just queued right into like a minute into the song so he could hear her voice as we were talking, and he's like, holy shit, you know, he was blown away and everything. Awesome. He thought it was amazing. And you know what, we were just talking about different ways to kind of get your music out there and stuff, and I hadn't heard this idea before. He said that he'd been doing this a little bit, is that he'll pay a DJ, he'll slip him like $50 or $60 and give him his song and have him slip it into a live mix on one of the club nights. And then he's like, but more than that, he's like, I specifically communicate with them about where they what they put it next to, because like, so he's like, I kind of sound like, I honestly, I guess he didn't tell me who he thought he sounded like, but he's like, I'll find an artist that I kind of sound like that's an inspiration for me. I know it's part of their mix, and then I'll have a request that he fades me in around then, like my chorus line. So I guess he gives them the music ahead of time, and that way they've kind of they figured out how they can work it in and like use it as a sample. So they'll like use his chorus or something in the middle of like a super popular song that's kind of in the vein, same kind of demographic. And then it's like, and then he'll fade out, and then it'll go back to the popular song and then have it fade back in. And even he's experimented with doing that because he does some DJing as well. And I was like, do you think that's a great idea? Like, that sounds really interesting and cool. And people ask about like what song is that? And they look for it.
Classic subliminal implanting.
I guess so, right? And I guess it's like, now you can, and for quite some time, you can put in lyrics, and like there's so much software that'll help find the song for you that has the lyrics. So if your stuff's up. That being said, I've never tested Shazam or something like that. I don't even know if that's one of the apps that you can still do this with, if that one's still around. But that was one for a while, years ago, where you'd just put your phone up next to a song and it'd tell you what it was, or you'd tell it the lyrics and it would cue it up. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to have that on my phone. You could hear it playing. You could pull the app up and it would input the audio and then automatically search and find what song it was.
So the question is, would it be able to find an independent artist like ourselves?
It
need to be something really popular.
It's how long it takes to find it. It's got to be searching through a much more obscure database to find, an underground band from Cincinnati than it would be to queue up, David Grohl singing
of course,
The Pretender. And it's right there.
And I wonder what the standard is for the database that it looks at. Like, so, I mean, does it start with something like nowadays, like Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube? Like, is that its immediate database of reference? Or, I mean, when we use one of those distributors that you apparently have to use in order to get your music onto these streaming platforms, like, does that immediately implement it in, where does that exist that it queues up the copyright information, so then an app like that could find it? I wonder.
And an example of the way the distribution stuff works. So about 5 years ago or so, Kurt and I recorded a song at my studio in Wakulla, and we made a video with the telephone. And it was one of the first videos that I tried to edit, and I did. It was like 2 or 3 shots. And anyways, we recorded the song and we uploaded it directly to Facebook as a video. And then it played for 5 years. And then when I did the distribution account, I released that song 5 years afterwards through the distribution company. And the distribution company then muted that Facebook video.
Right.
The Facebook video was years older. It was like the Facebook video was first.
Retroactively went back like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That sucks. What, guys, question to you as a, listener of this podcast. We're in the boat where, if you checked us out in the 2 episodes back, we didn't like our stuff being muted. We wanted people to be able to upload our music onto their own very popular TikTok channel pages, YouTube channels. We want people to be able to upload it on their own channels. Upon them doing it, we basically have to put them onto some list in order for them to be allowed to do that. If we've used a service like DistroKid, that happens to be the one that we used, and you can't. So we removed ourselves from DistroKid so people could do this, but then in doing so, it does pull us off of Spotify and Apple Music. So now our music's not up on there. We have to get back up. And I assumed that you could it'd be more of a pain in the ass, but that you could upload it directly to these streaming platforms. It's just the other service was to do it in one bulk thing, and it's just more convenient. But in fact, just to be clear, if you don't know this, because we kind of learned this, you have to use one of those. And I guess that's a safety for Spotify and Apple, where they don't have to be responsible for your copyright stuff because you're already doing it through a distribution house that is handling the copyright. So it makes them less legally liable. So the question is, man, is there no way to be on those platforms and allow people to upload your work onto their channels directly rather than just sharing your content and trying to tell people about it? Because less people end up seeing it that way. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
question I have.
How come how it's blending like back in the 80s and the 90s before the internet sharing of MP3s and all that? It was just word of mouth. Everybody shared it. You talked about it to your friends, they talked about their friends, you handed out free demos. And now when you post something on the one through one of those aggregators, they limit the ability for anyone else to share it. So then you don't it blocks that. It
Yeah.
inhibits that from happening. And I
It'll
think that
mute
that's one
it
of the
or they'll
most,
get a strike, even. I think in
yeah,
some cases.
that's one of the most important ways for bands to still for anybody really, any small time independent, if you art creator to just share their art, to
Yeah.
do that. And it's
Because
blocking it.
again, as an example, if you guys have experimented with this, if you made a band page on Facebook, for instance, which may not be the hippest social platform to be pushing so strong, but
What do you mean not hip?
that's the only one I still use. But if you upload a video directly onto your page, if you look at the views, you're going to have more views than if somebody shares your video. And if you look
Yeah.
at the people that help share your video, oftentimes it's like it gets 2 or 3 likes and you look at the play count and it's like 10 plays, versus a few hundred. So it's a pretty dramatic difference being able to upload directly to your page, which is why with us having so many bandmates involved in this project, 10 people, it's like having everyone be allowed to upload it to their personal pages so more of their personal fan groups can see it is what we want.
Mhm.
But I guess we have to put each one of everybody's social media accounts on some whitelisting page, and even that doesn't seem to be as user friendly as we had hoped on DistroKid at the time that we were trying to do
Yeah.
it. So it's
It,
a conundrum.
it's it's just counterintuitive, I think.
Yeah.
And with Facebook too, when you scroll on Facebook anymore, every third post, every third thing in the feed is an advertisement.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's turning into a bad version of cable TV, I think.
Yeah.
And that's again, it's kind of what drew us to coming up with the premise of this whole thing in the first place. That
Mhm.
frustration of not being able to share music the way you want to anymore. And
Mhm.
then we also, when you and I wrote these songs, we kind of looked at each other and said, okay, well now we got to figure out what this show's going to be. Like
Yeah.
what's at the time was a movie. Like
Yeah.
what's the plot? Like okay, how are we going to present a 5-song EP into a film at the time? It was,
Mhm.
how are we going to take 5 songs with 5 individual music videos? Where do we start? Where's the middle? Where's the end?
What's the general concept? Do we want, and we had to like cross the idea of like, all right, is it super fantasy or is it
Yeah.
more reality based? Is it gritty? Is this going to be a drama or is this going to, because it's heavy music and it's got so much depth potentially to it, we were envisioning, even though we hadn't written everything yet. I mean, there were
Mm.
big epic songs. It's like, does comedy work with this? But we loved how the Fighting Giants EP came out, visual EP. And I think we both agreed that ultimately, if we were going to be acting, that the best chance that we had was to just be silly because we're again non-actors, guys. So, I mean, we play around, but we've never done dramas, we've never done plays, So, being playful was like that's more again as close to home to who we are, the better we could potentially pull it off. However, we did want to up our game some. We wanted to be able to learn and memorize scripts, so that's where we got invested in that website Masterclass.
Yep.
Masterclass.com. We went ahead and signed up for that. There was a deal happening at the time, and one of the courses that they have from multiple people is acting courses and script writing courses. So it was an
Yeah.
interesting experience testing that. And we started doing um,
And
remotely even a lot of
yeah, it
times.
was through COVID. We started that. It was
Yeah.
kind of one of those ideas we had where, okay, we're literally not allowed to go be in the same place together. in May,
at the time where it was
April,
super
May,
scary.
June of
We didn't
2020.
know what it was going to be.
So the master class, I think you pitched it to me. You told me about it and said, hey, let's go in 50-50 on a year subscription. And when you get in there, I don't want to pitch master class to anybody, but I hadn't done anything like it, because you go in there and there was an acting course, and the instructor, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
I said, man, this is cool. And when you watch it, they're episodic. So it comes in with an intro. So I watched Sam Jackson's class, and he had a couple exercises in it. And then you and I started doing screenplay script reading back and forth through something kind of like this, but it was like a Zoom or a Skype or something.
Yeah, I think it was Skype, I believe. And yeah, we were doing it remotely, so there was latency too, and we're not like looking at each other in the eyes, and so we're like trying to get good at acting, and here we are, like this is not we're not feeding off of each other the same way. Like now our internet's better too. I think at that time my internet, I didn't have as good of an internet option, and your internet wasn't as good where you were.
Mine was so bad. I was all the way in the back shed out back, 150 feet from my router in the house.
Yeah. So it's like we're like trying to figure out, learn acting. We picked out I think I can't remember. I picked out Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. Yeah.
I loved Quentin Tarantino. He's one of my favorite directors all time. And it's like, and it's just so script heavy. And so we were doing a scene from Reservoir Dogs, and it was between Mr. Blonde or Mr. White, Mr. White and Mr. Pink. Yeah.
Yep. And Mr. Pink, Mr. Pink is Steve Buscemi's character, and Mr. White was Harvey Keitel.
Yeah, totally.
It's like two totally opposite characters, and we went back and forth. Like each one of us got to have fun and be silly with Mr. Pink, and then kind of serious and very, very calculated with Mr. White.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was also, and I knew this. We both knew this was coming. A reality check on how hard it is to learn how to memorize lines when you've never worked on that before.
Yeah, a full conversation is like, okay, you're going to go from point A to point B in a conversation, which means you have to be able to talk for one. Then you have to be able to remember too. Then you got to do both at the same time. So now you're walking and chewing gum at the same time. Then you also have to remember, and the kicker is you have to remember what their lines are, and you have to naturally react to the line, and just the whole process when you actually get in front of a camera and like try to do it. It's not just like talking, unless we do what we did. we had a point A to point B to go to, and neither one of us being trained actors, we just kind of, okay, here's the script. We need to get this information across. But let's do it a couple times and try to be natural with it. And that's kind of where the flow ended up happening.
Yeah, it was like, so there was close to a 60-page script for this whole movie that is now a four-part miniseries show. And so I think what we do is, at first, it's just trying to say the lines close to verbatim. So that way we would act that out together. This is once the cameras are set up. We never got to rehearse any scenes that are in this movie. Every time we're getting together and it's on film the first time we're trying to see what it sounds like to say the shit out loud. And we're filming it and putting it in the hardest thing we've ever made, like the most time consuming. It's so amateur hour in that respect. But we would say the line.
That's where the comedy starts shining. Yeah, it's because it was amateur hour.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not amateur hour. It is and it isn't. It's not, because you're not an amateur.
I don't know.
The production, the video quality, the music videos, everything outside of that
part
is I feel very high. I mean, I didn't make it. I'm allowed to say it. You edited everything in at your place, so I'm allowed to say it is incredible, because I'm not the one who did that part.
Yeah, I mean, the production value is there, and everything that feels so low budget and feels intentional. So it's like playing into our low budget, and I give that advice to people, period. Like anytime you're trying to do something, if there's a problem, if there's a glitch, if you go out and film something or you record something and there's a problem with it, accentuate the problem and make it a feature, not something that you're trying to hide per se. And then it becomes like the unique thing about it, you know?
Yeah. And it's easiest to do that with comedy. It's hard to do that with something serious and different. And in the beginning, trying, kicking around ideas back and forth in our head, you had the general idea with the muses, the mindscape. You were like, you had that idea, and I said that's great. It's awesome. I don't know what to call it yet. But it's awesome. A person's inner creative being, a muse, that's an actual entity that's attached to a person's whatever your word is for it. And then it was like, okay, well, what's the meat around the skeleton? Where who am I in this? Who are you in this? And
both
the serious, there was like some seriousness in the beginning. I remember there was some real seriousness to the characters, and then that just had to go out the window.
It really did. Yeah. I mean, it just had to. It was just like it's got to be super silly and playful. And also it's like, what if it's going to take this much effort to do we want to laugh our asses off while we're making this or not? Because that's the fun part, right? Like, I mean, so we laughed so hard during some of these scenes where we're trying to make it and execute the acting. I mean, like gut-wrenching laughing, and that's great. That's so fun.
Anybody who's ever been in a band that they actually enjoyed being in, knows that's most of what it is. It's 3 or 4 dudes or 5 dudes or chicks and dudes.
Chicks. I was going to throw in a chick there.
You do this stuff together, but everything outside of actually playing is just silly nonsense fart jokes. And it's cracking each other up and having a good time. I don't know a band I was ever in that where it was very serious. Oh, we have to. Why? Like, I get some things, sure, but not all the time.
Yeah. Which is why the show has the humor that it does, because it's like, it's kind of humor. I mean, granted, it's got a script and a concept that we're trying to execute, but ultimately it is just like us banter that you'd have in a band room to some extent. It's guys like joking around with each other, and because all bandmates kind of improv with each other already, right? You like start making a joke and your buddy plays into it, and before you know it, you guys are actually acting out a whole scene and your characters. And that's like, we're just like, let's package that up into this storyline and just have fun with it. So the improving aspect, so there's a lot of improv in the acted scenes. However, I will say towards the end, on the later days of filming, we were getting better at remembering lines. I mean, I think even though there was improving, we were getting closer to like executing more of the script each time we filmed. I think we were getting better and better.
Yeah. It started feeling, the way it goes, it's like you're 80% done, then you feel like, okay, I've got an 80% grasp on what I'm doing here. And then by the very end of it, you wish you could just start all over again.
Yeah.
Because then, but you can't. That's life.
Yeah. Totally. No, it was really fun getting to do the acting and stuff. It was really challenging. So a lot of times, guys, like in these scenes, a lot of it is nobody behind the camera. It's literally setting up 3 cameras or so, and they're unmanned. You just have them in position. And then, we as all the actors in the scene, only 2 or 3 people at a time usually, because it's kind of a dystopian future with very few people and communication. We just get in front of the cameras and take after take after take after take of bullshit that I had to go through the editing room. Like, how do I even? And at some point you improv so much, you're like, shit, did we even get back to this topic? And now there's no continuity with where we're at and what we're doing on this take, and it went too wild on that, but I want to use this part. So how do I make this work? And it's a learning experience. I feel like for me, I'm not saying this is a fact, maybe some people it's more intuitive, but out of all the things that I've edited, I've done lots of live events, I've done music videos, I've done a lot of different approaches with branding and commercials and documentary style stuff. But the hardest thing to edit, I think, is a scripted scene. It's so hard to get it to flow and cut right and continuity wise work, and sound levels change between takes, and people take breaks and come back, and now the mic's in a different place. And so how do you even get that to match again?
So
And
many variables. Yeah.
it's so sensitive.
That's why, like, when you see a movie at the end of the movie, there's so many people.
Yeah.
So many. The credits go on. I mean, Marvel pushes that crap out for 25 minutes before you get your cookie at the end, you know. But all those people help that on set, like with mic placement. Somebody goes on break, they come back, cooks their hair just right, the whole thing. And we had none of that.
We got nobody telling us, dude, your fly's down in this take, and then you know you got a booger on your shoulder on that take, but now it's gone all of a sudden.
Yeah,
you know, those boogers kept being a problem.
Again, play into the boogers, because everybody likes a good booger joke.
Yeah, there's big zoom shots on the boogers in the post edit.
Yeah, so. And then a real serious look from the other guy.
Yeah,
is he gonna notice it?
It was fun. It was great. Dude, we're already at 30 minutes. I think we were going to talk some about props, but you know what? I think that's next episode. What do you think? Like, I want to get into some of the prop and the set design stuff in the next one. Talk about Michael Morgan, our prop master, who built a bunch of stuff. And then you really teamed up with him for a lot of the backdrop stuff. And you did end up making a couple of items that were used in some of the episodes that are already out. We can talk about those and how silly they were. And then we got to use it in combination with what Michael had. And we should get into that. And maybe I'll talk about the effects that I tried to add to him as well, like how I kind of did that. And because that was new territory for me.
Absolutely. But it was like, we can save all that for the next one. Yeah.
So guys, next episode, we're going to get into some of the prop design and stuff like that, and some of the effects that went into it, and both in post-production and on set. And
and a couple cool backstories on some of them. Some of them are based on actual real mythological pieces of gear.
Yeah, in the music world that we'll get into. So we didn't invent everything out of complete thin air. Well, dude, it's great seeing you, even if it's just like this. And I know we're staying busy and stuff, and we'll put out hopefully another episode next week. We're trying to do one a week, guys. So we'll try to keep this up.
If you want them every week, you have to let us know.
Please let us know. It makes a difference. And we're up on just to say, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and soon we're going to have clips up on TikTok. So we'd have a TikTok. So Cue the Muses is everywhere, and we're on Instagram as well. So any follows is greatly appreciated. Subscribers, this and that. CueTheMuses.com. Our episodes are up, where if you want to watch the first 2 episodes of the show and the music videos, like everything's available for free, guys. So yeah, look us up if you don't
come and see us.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
I have to hit it twice.